Welcome, my name is Vishal Texanani. Today I'm speaking to the CEO of Qantas, Alan Joyce, and we're going to talk about the airline's business strategy and outlook in the very competitive aviation market. Alan, it's great to have you here. How are you?
It's great to be here. Fantastic.
That's great. Thanks, Alan. So when I think about Qantas from an investor's perspective, it's been quite the turnaround story. You had the oil price shock earlier in the decade. Qantas' share price fell to nearly $1. Today it's above $6. So my question to you is, do investors view the flying kangaroo as a continuing turnaround story, or is this now a growth business that's going to be paying regular dividends to investors?
Well, we think there's still room for improvement because Qantas is trading at a discount to the ASX and to its airline peers. Yet at the same time, we think we have a huge amount of advantages compared to a lot of airlines around the globe. We have a domestic duopoly where two players have 98% market share, or where Qantas has the largest market share. And in the domestic market, we're nowhere near the worldwide record margins that people are performing with. Mm-hmm. We also have a domestic business, a domestic loyalty business, which is very unique. It's a bit like an annuity, and it keeps on having growth, and our projections are that it will have 7 to 10% annual growth over the next few years, and in 2022 it can have earnings of up to $600 million. So that gives us confidence that there's still more room for growth in the Qantas share price and the Qantas performance going forward.
Okay, and is that what growth is going to be driven by for Qantas, that loyalty business?
I think it's a combination of a number of things. One, it is loyalty, which is, as we said, very unique. It makes all of its money out of selling points to third parties. And it is a great business. We're launching new businesses like Qantas Assure, or an insurance business, Qantas Cash, or credit card businesses. Actually, a stat that amazes me is that 35% of all credit card expenditure in Australia is on a Qantas earning credit card. So we know it's a business that has huge growth opportunities going forward. But I also look at our international business and I see the turnaround that we're still delivering in that business. New aircraft like the 787s replacing the 74s, new destinations like Perth to London, a new hub in Singapore, and they're going to produce significant improvements in the performance of that business as well.
Okay, so let's look at the global aviation market. I want to talk about trends there. So over the last 10 years, we've had quite a lot of consolidation, particularly among US carriers. Yeah. Have we reached peak M&A, or is there more M&A to come? And what does that mean for Qantas?
Well, I think what we've seen is that with that consolidation, the industry now for 4 years in a row has returned its cost of capital. And it's changed investors' perspectives on the industry. Warren Buffett famously said he would never invest in an airline. Now he's bought into the 4 major carriers in the United States. Why? Why consolidation has occurred, but also because capacity discipline has come in to markets like North America, some parts of the European market, Japan and Australia. And I think that's made it very interesting for investors for the first time. And we do believe that the industry's turned a corner. And that's good for Qantas because a lot of our competitors are very focused on commercial returns, particularly on the Pacific, particularly in markets like Japan and in Southeast Asia. And that does help with the performance of the international routes.
Okay, so I want to turn the attention to the age of your fleet. So last year, a publication called traveller.com.au published a piece where they stated that Qantas had the 10th oldest fleet among major airlines across the world. Is that an issue that will need to be addressed by Qantas? And what does that mean in terms of the capital intensity of your business? In other words, will you have to go out and buy a whole bunch of new expensive planes and add to your debt?
Well, first of all, I think the average fleet doesn't tell a good story in different airlines because it's really about the fleets in the different areas of the business and the competition and fit for purpose in those different areas. And what Qantas is spending a lot of money on at the moment as part of our fleet renewal is the replacement of the international fleet. And that is on a forward capital commitments. So we are currently replacing all of the 747s with 14 787s. It will mean in the next couple of years our international fleet is the youngest it's ever been, with the most consistent product it's ever had. And that's the area where you have to have that competitive dynamic. However, we simultaneously have been buying 25-year-old aircraft. for markets like Western Australia, where we have fly in, fly out, which is an aircraft that has very low utilization. It's an aircraft that gives savings to BHP and Rio, our customers, and it's an aircraft that competes against 25-year-old aircraft, and that they do not need to be replaced for some considerable time. So the average age doesn't tell that story fully, and you have to go through a category by category, and you see that Qantas is in a very competitive position when you go through category, market by market, and we're very comfortable that our capital expenditure profile going forward will allow us to continue to renew that fleet in each of those categories.
Okay, so let's talk about risks. So over the last 4 years, conditions have been very kind to airlines. Lower fuel prices, a strengthening global economy, you've had increasing consumer confidence, and of course, as we know, in Australia and emerging Asia, the consumer really wants to see the rest of the world. So those are all things that have been working in your favour. But what worries you?
I think complacency. I mean, one of the things that Qantas has been recognised as is the safest airline in the world. Why is that, and why have we got such a long record? Because we're never complacent when it comes to safety, and we never will be. And I'm continuing to say to the business, we have to, on business risks and business issues, have the same attitude and never get complacent. You never know what type of challenges you could get, whether it's a geopolitical spike in oil prices, and it's how the business copes with them that's important. And we know, and we have seen, that if you have capacity discipline, you can cope with any demand shocks or geopolitical shocks that are out there. And it's keeping the business on edge to react fast to the changes in the environment, like we do when it comes to any safety issues that may occur there.
Okay, and so you've got a lot of fuel hedging in place, and what tools do you have to prepare for risks?
So,
unexpected risks.
So geopolitical risks like oil prices, there's a number of tools. One, you do put hedging in place, and we were one of the best hedged airlines out there, and that gives us time to be able to cope with moving oil prices and to get airfares and capacity adjusted to cope with that. And that's the main reason we do hedging. It's also important that you have stability and a market structure that allows you to recover that. And in the domestic market, with two players with 98% capacity, one player suffering very badly and actually still in potentially losses this year, and have no alternative but to try and get oil prices back through increased airfares, that market structure gives you confidence that you can recover that. And then replacing inefficient aircraft with fuel efficient aircraft, like we are on the international operation with the rollover of the 747s, gives you a significant benefit to cope with rising fuel prices.
Okay. My last question isn't about your business, Alan. I just have to know, what is Alan Joyce's favourite destination to travel to?
Well, I think on the domestic network, I would pick Tasmania. I think the Tasmanians have done an amazing job at the tourism infrastructure. Mona in Hobart, what they've done in Cradle Mountain, and some of the resorts that they have around the state is fantastic, and I really, truly recommend that. And then internationally, I think my favourite city, which I'm going to on holidays in July, is New York City. I think there's a buzz about New York. The food is great. There's a lot happening there, and I have a lot of family and friends that live in the city.
Okay, I'm adding those to my bucket list. Thank you so much, Alan. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks very much. That's great.
No worries.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that video. Now, please remember what we talked about today isn't a recommendation to transact in Qantas' shares. If that's something you wish to do, please do your research and consider seeking financial advice. My name is Vishal Texanani, and I'll see you next time.